Our top story this hour, the countdown to the Tokyo Olympics is drawing closer, but there is less excitement for the Games and more fear that it will turn out to be a super spreader event. This is COVID cases related to the Olympics continue to rise. In the latest, an American gymnast has tested positive, taking the total number of cases involving the Games to nearly 60 now. The gymnast, whose identity has not been revealed, did not test positive in Tokyo, but at her team's training camp in the Inzai city. The cases have raised doubts over the organizers' ability to contain the spread. The Olympic officials are downplaying the outbreak. They are saying that they had expected positive cases and insist that the situation is under control.
陽性者出ないに越したことはありませんけれども、当然出ることを想定してさまざまシミュレーションをしております。で、昨日今日と一昨日、昨日と出たわけですけれども、コントロール下にコントロールできているというふうに思っております。従いまして今。
Now here's how the outbreak unfolded. Initially, non-competitors like staff members tested positive. Last week, then, 2 South African footballers became the first athletes to test positive. On Monday, Czech beach volleyball player tested positive, and then the case of the US gymnast. Several athletes who came in contact with those who contracted COVID are under quarantine. The outbreak has only added to the fear among Tokyo residents that the Olympics will increase COVID cases. The Japanese capital remains under a state of emergency due to a surge in infections. The country's vaccination drive has also been slow. Only 21% of the total population has been fully vaccinated. The emergency will last through the Games. According to a poll by a local paper, 68% of the Japanese felt that the Games cannot be held safely.
でもだろうなって言い方もあれなんですけど、やっぱ感染力がもっと今強くなっている中で、そのオリンピックするっていうのもやっぱりなんだろう、去年待ちましたけどどうかなと思いますし。
Organizers claim that they have put several measures in place to contain the spread of cases. Athletes will have to undergo frequent RT-PCR tests as well. Spectators have been banned from attending the events. Despite this, thousands of people, including athletes, their staff and media personnel, will be part of the event. In 2020, Tokyo Olympics was one of the last major events to be called off due to the pandemic. However, organizers and the host Japan vowed to conduct the Games this year. And for more on this story, Phoebe Amoroso joins us live from Tokyo. Phoebe, thank you for joining us. Now, COVID cases related to the Olympics are on a rise. The number is at nearly 60. What can you tell us about the efficacy and the ability to contain the spread by the organizers?
So the organisers have maintained that they're very confident in the measures they have put in place. There have been 3 confirmed COVID cases within the Olympic Village. These individuals have been immediately isolated, and then organisers have proceeded to identify close contacts. In the case of the South African team, for example, 21 members of the soccer team were confirmed to be close contacts, and they are now being isolated. They will have to get clearance to train, but there is a rule that they can still compete. So they will be tested for 6 hours beforehand. But the organisers have pointed out that when it comes to the numbers coming in, and these are figures from Monday morning, so we're still waiting to hear the update for Tuesday, but since July the 1st, 22,000 people have come into Japan for the Games, and they said that only 28 of those had tested positive. That is a very low percentage. Also, US health expert Brian McCloskey says these numbers are lower than have been expected. However, on the other hand, we've heard from public health expert Kenji Shibuya, who said it's very clear that the bubble is broken, and he fears that there will be mixing within the accommodation or that with the general public, and this will lead to the Delta variant spreading. So opinion is really divided on how safe these events really will be.
Right, Phoebe, I was just going to come to that. Many have vehemently opposed the decision to go ahead with the Games, and these new cases have only raised fears. As you mentioned, at this point, even though the bubble has been breached and the cases might be lower than what was expected, do you think this may turn out to be a super spreader event? What can you tell us about that?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
I'm just saying, even though at this point the cases remain lower than what... Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right, Phoebe, I was asking you, even though the numbers remain lower than what was expected, do you think this may turn out to be a super spreader event? Because as we know, in Tokyo, a lot of residents are vehemently opposed to the decision of going ahead with the Games.
Yeah, so actually just a survey came out in the Asahi newspaper this week showing that over 2/3 do not believe the event will be safe and secure. We've got to look at the COVID-19 backdrop in Japan at the moment. Tokyo is currently under its 4th state of emergency. And just last week, daily cases hit a 6-month high. They've been topping 1,000 for 5 days in a row. And there has been an alarming spread of the Delta variant here on the ground that is seeing younger people have more serious symptoms. That is also causing concern. So yeah, as I mentioned, there are divisions between the experts as to just whether this can actually be contained. The biggest concern is that the bubble does not seem to be in place. It seems to be a very permeable bubble. There have been reports on social media of athletes and officials apparently looking like they're breaking the rules around Tokyo. The general public, not only are they living under restrictions, but they feel that the Olympics are being given priority compared to the freedoms that people are enjoying in their daily lives. Restaurants here are closing by 8 p.m., for example. So there's a fair amount of resentment on top of the fear that this could spread infections. However, the new numbers are going to be coming in today, and everybody is going to be watching how this rolls out.
Right, Phoebe. As you mentioned, we know a number of staffers and athletes are in quarantine as well. What does this mean for the games and the schedule going forward? What sort of adjustments can we expect at this point?
So it's quite a complicated system, and it really depends on each individual sport and event, but the organisers have a structure laid out that, for example, if someone tests positive, who can then take their place in the tournament. It's all to do with different rankings and different sports. There is a rule regarding close contacts, and they had to revise this really because just so many close contacts have been confirmed. For example, even a British track and field team arriving on Sunday, 6 of their members were on a flight where someone on that flight tested positive. So that makes them as a close contact, depending on a few other variables as well. So in order to allow athletes to still go ahead and compete and to not completely derail or jeopardize the entire schedule, they have a rule now that if someone designated as a close contact tests negative 6 hours before they compete in the tournament, they can go ahead and compete. And this will be put into practice on Thursday, where the South African soccer team is scheduled to play host country Japan in a match just before the opening ceremony on Friday. And so that will be the first time that this close contact rule is applied.
All right, Phoebe, thank you so much for joining us with all those updates on that. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.